Hello everybody, my name is Citrus, and Shadow. Oh, and there's Sonic, too, I guess. We have a ton of info about Sonic Shadow Generations, and there is just so much that I want to say about this game. It looks crazy, it looks wild. And I'm not even gonna do the rest of the intro, we're just gonna go into it. Before we get into, let's be honest, what we're all here to actually talk about, there are some things about Sonic Generations, the base game, technically the main part of this package, which we need to discuss before we get into the goods. You wouldn't know that this is mainly a Generations remaster though, because Shadow is literally on the box art, pushing both Sonics out of the way and taking center stage. Anyways, Sonic Generations. In terms of the actual remastering of the game, it doesn't look remastered. It basically looks unchanged, which is kind of a good thing. I think a lot of people were very scared after Sonic Colors Ultimate, where the game just looked worse and ran worse, and a lot of things about that game were just worse than the original. So to see that Sonic Generations is, at the very least, untouched, fine, is good. You know, it's not more broken than it was before. The thing is, that's a pretty low bar for a remaster, which is just doing practically nothing to the visuals. Maybe we're not seeing all of the enhancements that they're doing. Obviously, it's hard to tell, you know, if the textures have really improved that much, maybe if the shadows have improved more. But just from what we've seen, it looks basically the same, which I'm not particularly bothered by. Generations is a good game. It looks nice. But there are things like the textures and the shadows, which I do hope are enhanced in this new version. It seems like the bigger changes that they've made to Generations are more so on the gameplay side. For example, they've removed the live system, which is fairly common, I guess, for Sonic remasters now, with the Sonic Origins collection, as well as Sonic Colors Ultimate. They both removed the lives counter, and instead, you just have infinite continues. I do hope that there's a way to play the game with the lives counter for people who like that sort of thing. Honestly, personally, I don't really mind. Honestly, I think the live system is sort of an archaic mechanic, and that's why you don't really see modern games having it in the first place, but that's a whole nother discussion. I do hope that the option is there, because I know there are a lot of people who enjoy that sort of type of challenge, and it would just be another nice bonus feature. There is also the new Chow collecting in the base game of Generations. They've like added little hidden Chow around the area. I believe there are 3 to a stage, but that might be different depending on the stage. And yeah, you just collect them. It's not really known what exactly they do. Presumably, after you collect them, they will follow you into whatever stage, and then will just float around and be cute. I'm hoping there might be a larger benefit to having these guys around than just being cute, and maybe even if you collect all of them in all the stages, there could be some sort of fun reward for that. But yeah, the Chow are here. It's another new collectible besides like the red rings in these levels, so that's nice. It adds another layer of replayability to a game that's already one of the most replayable Sonic games. And of course, it wouldn't be a modern Sonic game without introducing the drop dash to Generations. And this is actually on both classic and modern Sonic. Both of them can use the drop dash. It looks pretty good from what we've seen for classic Sonic, where, you know, it works as you expect. You jump, you hold down the jump button while you're in midair, and then when you land on the ground, you dash forward. It could be a little faster in my opinion, but I could definitely see how this would be fun for the classic Sonic levels, and I'm just looking forward to replaying some of those stages with this new mechanic. For modern Sonic, however, it looks pretty janky. I don't really see the point, because anywhere where you could use the drop dash, you could also conceivably boost, and I figure that you'd rather do that than use the drop dash. In Frontiers, there's like some use case scenarios for it, but in Generations, I'm like, I don't know if this is really necessary, but regardless of that, I guess it's kind of cool that it's here. And the last big change that we've seen to Generations so far is that the control method is now akin to Sonic Frontiers, whereas now the boost button is on the right trigger and the homing attack is on the square button. There are reports saying that you can swap this back to the original layout, where jump and homing attack are on the same button, and square is the boost button. So you can go back and forth. Personally, I like that they at least included this in the game as an option, because I really like the Frontiers control method. I've gotten really used to it, and in fact, when I've gone back to older Sonic games that have the boost, I instinctually want to hit the trigger, and then I'm like, oh wait, no. You hit the square button in this one. Oh, and they also added the red ring counter from Frontiers, so you can actually keep track of which red rings you've collected in the stage, and it shows up at the top of the screen. Cool. Nice touch. But enough of this guy. I'm tired of it. It's time for this guy. It's time for him. Shadow Generations. Off the bat, looking incredible. Looking really, 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 really good. It is. It's so exciting. It's so cool. I will start with the level designs. The level designs are the most important thing, I think, in any Sonic game, because it's the actual stages that you're going to be playing, and so far, looking pretty solid. We've only seen the first level in full through different gameplay previews, but that first level, man, it's looking good. It's looking really, really good. Fidel showed off some really nice gameplay where we saw him multiple times playing through the entire stage. We get to see a lot of cool stuff from his footage. We see just how many different pathways there are and all the different routes. There are lots of these cool like cinematic moments in the levels, which are pulled straight out of Frontiers, and I love that. I love that they're continuing to expand on that and making the animations even better, even cooler, and just more fun. I don't know, it just makes the level more engaging, more exciting. Really great stuff. The level was also entirely 3D. There were no 2D sections in there. We do know that there's gonna be some 2D sections in this game, but we'll talk about that. And to top it all off, it's also like a really long level. It's about 4 to 5 minutes, which is pretty solid for a Sonic stage. That is kind of what you want from a Sonic level. Like I said though, there are gonna be 2D elements in this game. We saw a little bit of like 2D Kingdom Valley in the trailer, and we don't really know exactly how much 2D is going to be in this game. We don't know if it's going to be separate 3D stages and then a separate 2D stage, or however they're going to break it up, but I'm just hoping that it's fairly limited. We also got to look at the hub world for this game, which there is in fact a hub world, the same way that Sonic has the white space void thing to access his levels. Shadow has something similar, except this time they have described it as a Frontiers style hub. So it's a big 3D open space where you can explore and run around and get to the various levels, and they've said that in this area you're going to have characters to talk to, there's going to be items to find, and other extra missions to do. This all lines up, this tracks for Sonic Generations, where in the base game you have Sonic's world, and you can run around and talk to characters and do side missions and find items. And so they're kind of doing the same thing, but for Shadow and in a 3D space. And I just think this is really cool. It really shows how much effort that they're putting into this side of the game, because they could have easily just done like a menu where you select the levels and that would have been it. Like, no, Sonic gets a hub world, Shadow gets a hub world, and if there's characters to talk to in Sonic's world, then there's characters to talk to in Shadow's world. And it's just a nice detail. I appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to running around in there. We also have a ton of abilities for Shadow, not like a crazy amount, not like a Frontier style moveset, but definitely some interesting stuff going on with how Shadow plays. For starters, he has his teleporting homing attack, which is from Sonic 06, I believe, or Shadow the Hedgehog. It's from the past. It's just a really cool move. It's a really unique way for Shadow to attack. It's a little slow. Not as slow as like the Frontiers homing attack, where you homing attack an enemy and it feels like you have like maybe a full second of delay. This one's a bit faster, it's a bit snappier, and it just looks really dope. It looks fun to use. Chaos Control is making its grand return to the series, and I really do mean grand, because this is probably the best Chaos Control has been used as a mechanic, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen. You charge up your Chaos Control by attacking enemies, and then once that meter is filled, you can press, I think, the left trigger, and that'll activate Chaos Control, where everything will slow down around you. And you can use it in some really creative ways, like there are, fast-moving platforms, and, they're hard to jump on, but if you use Chaos Control, obviously it's going to slow down time. You can jump across really easily, and then keep going, and you can use it for, various different paths. It's not always, like, the game's not always going to tell you, this is where you need to use Chaos Control, and the other areas you can't. It's like you can use it anywhere, and you can make up your own shortcuts with it. And it just looks really, really dope. I think this is super, super cool, and it's a really great return for this power, which is so iconic to Shadow. Speaking of returning moves, we also have the Chaos Spear, which looks to be pretty interesting. I think, from what I understand, you can use it at any time. You know, you throw out a big bolt of energy, and it can destroy enemies or stun them or whatever. That's really cool. I'm wondering how useful it'll actually be in the game, considering, you know, most enemies that you can throw a spear at, you can also homing attack, so I don't know why you wouldn't do that. But also considering that the homing attack is a little slower than it has been in previous titles, perhaps there are opportunities where you'd want to just hit it with a spear, because that might potentially be faster. Just cool to see it back. It's such a cool move. I love all of Shadow's like chaos moves. Really hoping that we get to see some Chaos Blast in here. I need to see Shadow just eviscerate a whole group of enemies. And the big new ability that Shadow has was shown at the end of the trailer, these Doom powers, as they're describing it in a lot of the PR materials for this game. Shadow sprouts wings, which is... it's insane. What is going on, man? What are we doing? Why is it so cool? I absolutely adore whatever the is going on with Shadow in this game, because this sounds insane. And like, you know, obviously the wings, those are going to become a gameplay mechanic later on. We haven't seen it, so we don't know exactly how it's going to work, but their wings, we can presume that you're going to be able to fly around. And I'm really wondering what the gameplay for that is going to be like. In my mind, I'm imagining a sort of like shoot 'em up style thing, almost like Kid Icarus, where like you're flying and you're shooting down enemies, and like maybe Shadow's like using Chaos Spear to just shoot guys down. That would be really cool. And I'm also really interested, because they're saying Doom powers, so I'm imagining there's going to be other mutations and other abilities that Shadow gets throughout the game. I would love to see maybe like he gets like a giant like Doom arm, and it's like he can just thrash through enemies, and it's like almost like the Werehog. Or maybe like a Doom grappling hook thing where he like shoots it out like a Spider-Man style web, and then you can swing across places. Like, there's so much potential for these, because it's basically like a Venom symbiote for him. I want them to go absolutely buck wild, and off bat they already are, so I'm really excited to see what else they do with these powers. Like I said, we also got to see the Bio-Lizard fight in the Summer Games Fest demo, and it looks pretty solid. It looks quite similar to the Sonic Adventure 2 Bio-Lizard boss fight, which is cool. I'm glad to see that, you know, they're kind of just remaking that fight, but for the modern era with like really nice visuals that I think everyone's been talking about on Twitter. But Bio-Lizard just feels like gross. It feels like kind of disgusting and like sad to look at. And so, I don't know, it makes the fight that much more intense. And, you know, it does have some new phases to the fight. There's a part where it sort of like sprouts wings or arms, depending on what you want to call them, and it like clings to the wall, and then, you know, there's some new stuff going on with the Bio-Lizard, which is pretty interesting. I'm just hoping for a lot more of these cool looking boss fights. I want to see some Mephiles in there. I want to see some Black Doom in there. Potentially, I was thinking about this. What if they brought back Infinite with this? Where, like, obviously, it wouldn't really make sense because the timeline, Generations is before Forces, and so Shadow wouldn't have met Infinite yet. But since we're doing time travel stuff anyways, Infinite from like the future goes into the past, Shadow has to fight him for the first time, calls him like a coward again or whatever. Like, that could be really funny and really cool, and like you could have like a truly proper cool Infinite boss fight, since he kind of got wrecked in Forces because that game just wasn't very good. So having like a cool Infinite boss fight in this game, I don't know, I think there's potential there. And with that, we're sort of getting into some of the story details for this game, and we do know a little bit, just a tiny bit. We know that Black Doom somehow returns, presumably because of the Time Eater, because we see some Time Eater shenanigans going on, and he's trying to destroy the world, exactly like he did before. We did have an interview with some members of Sonic Team from Famitsu, and they were saying that this story takes place before Generations. It's actually supposed to explain how Shadow ends up in the main story of Generations, where he's just like a rival battle. It makes me very curious for like how this is gonna end, because we see that the Time Eater is involved in Shadow's campaign, and so if this is a prequel, then that means that Shadow encountered the Time Eater before it attacked Sonic, which is definitely an interesting story detail. I'm wondering if at the end of the game, because the Time Eater's still alive at the end of Generations, Sonic is the one who ultimately defeats it. So what is the end of this campaign? Does Shadow defeat the Time Eater? Does the Time Eater ultimately win and it ends on kind of like a bad note? I don't know. It's strange. I have some theories on what might actually be going on, and so I think I'm gonna do a separate video talking about some theories for the story of this game. And now I just want to briefly touch on a couple of various small topics that we saw through the demo. Like, the animations in this game are top notch. You can see it in all like cinematic stuff, but also in just like the running animations, the homing attack animations. Like, they're really high quality. I would dare say that they're probably more high quality than the animations that we got in Frontiers. And that's really exciting, because I think for a long time we've had pretty stiff, pretty passable animation for Sonic. Now we're getting some really solid animation. It's just like really high quality, really polished. The rank animations look really good. Like, we're eating. The UI is also looking very, very solid. It's got these like cool flame effects on everything, and it just looks really nice. It obviously fits with the Generations UI aesthetics, which is nice, but you know, more themed around Shadow. Everything's like black and red. It's just a nice little touch, you know? The animations are like the nice little sprinkles on top of the game cake. Music also sounds pretty good. I haven't been super blown away by anything I've heard so far, but the remixes do sound good. They sound nice, and I think maybe once they're released in a higher quality and you can hear them a little better, I'll grow to appreciate them more, but already sounding pretty nice. And the writing, we know that Ian Flynn is back on this project. He's writing for Shadow Generations, and we got some really killer lines from Kirk Thornton in this in these little demo levels. They're really good. Like, the writing is really good, the delivery is really good. I feel like Kirk has just gotten better and better and better with each game that he's played Shadow in. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of his lines. You know, I want him to have some really dope lines, you know, some really like cool, hard lines. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations, and my god, I'm so excited for this game. It looks so good. It looks so good. This game is looking phenomenal. And I know we've been talking a lot about the Shadow stuff. I'm also really looking forward to going back to Generations with its new content. I'm probably going to play it on the Switch. And so having one of my favorite Sonic games ever on the go is just another really nice thing on top of everything else. And of course, Shadow Generations is looking so phenomenal. I'm so excited to experience the story and these new levels. I didn't even mention that, like, you know, Rail Canyon and Kingdom Valley are coming back for Shadow's campaign. I adore Kingdom Valley. Every time I boot up like Project 06, the first thing I do is just run through Kingdom Valley before I do anything else. It's just, this game's gonna be so good. But anyways, that about does it for this little video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, click that like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, because of course we're going to be talking a lot about this game in the coming months. Comment down below your thoughts on Sonic X Shadow Generations so far. You know, from the gameplay you've seen, if there's anything that you want to see, let me know all that stuff down below. And yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Peace.